A headline sent shockwaves across the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia, one of the world's most populous landlocked nations, announced a path to the sea. The news came in the form of a deal, a memorandum of understanding signed with the self-declared Republic of Somaliland. This agreement, unveiled in early 2024, proposed giving Ethiopia access to a stretch of coastline on the Red Sea. For a country of over 120 million people, a nation whose economic ambitions have long been constrained by geography, this was a monumental development. It felt like a fundamental redrawing of the region's strategic map, a move that could unlock immense economic potential, but also ignite old tensions. The announcement did not happen in a vacuum. It followed months of increasingly urgent statements from Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. He framed sea access not just as an economic goal, but as an existential matter for his country's future. The message was clear. Ethiopia could not remain dependent on others for its connection to global trade. This quest for a port has been a central theme in Ethiopia's history, but this new approach felt different. It was bold, it was direct. For Ethiopia, securing sea access is a matter of urgent economic necessity. The country is a continental giant. Population exceeds 126 million. The population continues to grow rapidly. Its economy has been one of Africa's fastest growing, averaging over 6% GDP growth annually. This growth has created an insatiable demand for imports and a pressing need to get exports to global markets efficiently. Yet, Ethiopia remains landlocked. That geographic reality is a heavy burden on development and future ambitions. Ethiopia is almost entirely dependent on the ports of Djibouti. That relationship has worked, but at a tremendous cost. Experts estimate Ethiopia pays about $1.5 billion every year. Port fees, logistics, transit costs. That's a massive drain on foreign currency reserves. The agreement that has caused so much turmoil is officially a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU. Signed in January 2024, it outlines a landmark arrangement between Ethiopia and the leadership of Somaliland. The central provision grants Ethiopia a 50-year lease on a 20-kilometer stretch of Somaliland's coastline. This strip is intended for the development of a naval base. This strip is also intended for a commercial maritime port. It would give Ethiopia's navy. Ethiopia's navy was re-established after the country became landlocked. It would be its first direct access to the Red Sea in over 3 decades. This is the core of what Ethiopia gets. In exchange, Ethiopia has made significant promises to Somaliland. The agreement includes commitments to substantial investments in Somaliland's infrastructure. Those investments could help modernize the region. They could also boost its economy. Ethiopia reportedly offered Somaliland a stake in state-owned enterprises like Ethiopian Airlines. The reaction was immediate. It was loud and overwhelmingly negative, you know. The strongest condemnation came from Somalia itself. The government in Mogadishu called it a blatant violation of its territorial integrity and a direct act of aggression. President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud declared the deal null and void. Somalia would defend its sovereignty by any means necessary. Somalia recalled its ambassador from Addis Ababa. Somalia appealed to the African Union. Somalia appealed to the Arab League, framing Ethiopia's move as an illegal attempt to annex part of its country. Eritrea reacted with deep suspicion and alarm. No official fiery statements at first, but actions spoke louder than words. Reports emerged that Eritrea ordered a nationwide military mobilization, widely interpreted as a warning to Ethiopia. Eritrean leaders have long been wary of Ethiopia's Red Sea ambitions, particularly concerning the port of Assab. The MOU with Somaliland was seen in Asmara as another sign of Ethiopia's determination to gain sea access. The path Ethiopia has chosen is fraught with complex legal and diplomatic challenges. The biggest obstacle is the international legal status of Somaliland. For over 3 decades, Somaliland has acted as a de facto independent state, holding democratic elections, maintaining relative peace in a turbulent region. But its claim to sovereignty is not recognized by the United Nations, the African Union, or any country in the world. The AU's charter stresses respecting colonial-era borders to prevent the continent from fracturing. Ethiopia recognizing Somaliland would break that consensus and set a dangerous precedent. That lack of recognition makes the MoU legally dubious in the eyes of the international community. Somalia argues, backed by international law, any deal over its territory must be with Mogadishu. Because the MoU was signed with a regional administration, as the dust settles from the initial shock of the MoU, several potential scenarios could unfold in the Horn of Africa. The first, and most optimistic, is a return to diplomacy and multilateral negotiation. Ethiopia might use the MoU as leverage to bring all parties to the table, including the federal government of Somalia. A comprehensive regional agreement could be brokered, perhaps with the help of the African Union, or other international partners. This could involve Ethiopia gaining guaranteed and affordable access to one or more ports, Djibouti, Eritrea, Somalia, in exchange for clear security guarantees and a formal renunciation of any claims that violate existing borders. This path would be slow and difficult, but it offers the only sustainable route to long-term stability. A second, more dangerous scenario involves a steady escalation of tensions. Somalia could expel the thousands of Ethiopian troops currently in the country, creating a security vacuum. Eritrea might maintain its heightened military posture along the border, increasing the risk of an accidental clash. Egypt could provide greater military and financial support to Somalia. The situation in the Horn of Africa is urgent, but it is not hopeless. Well, the crisis sparked by the Ethiopia-Somaliland MoU has brought the region to a critical crossroads. One path leads toward division, instability, the potential for conflict. The other leads toward dialogue, integration, shared prosperity. The choice must be for the latter. The stakes are simply too high for any other outcome. Ethiopia, Somalia, Eritrea, and across the region deserve a future defined by peace and economic opportunity, not by old grievances and new wars. The responsibility now falls on leaders to steer away from the brink. The most constructive step forward is to prioritize calm, direct, and inclusive diplomacy. The African Union, as the continent's primary institution for peace and security, must take a leading role. It should facilitate talks between Ethiopia and Somalia to address the core issues of sovereignty and economic access.